Okay, Ramblers, let's get rambling.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Dr. Nick.
Some Dumb Guy here, and welcome to my fourth and final installment of 2024 Movies Ranked. This will be the top 10 for the three of you that have stuck with me through this arduous journey. I thank you. Here's the big payoff. Will this top 10 be more controversial, less controversial than what has come before? We shall find out. But more importantly, the question to ask is, what would you do for a Klondike bar? Yeah, we'll run through the last 10 remaining of 44 total. February 16th of 2024 for a film directed by William Eubank. Not Eubanks, a plural. That's a singular Eubank. I've never run across that before. We're talking Land of Bad. And this film was a very much under the radar, out of nowhere film, starring Liam Hemsworth and Russell Crowe. Didn't realize Luke Hemsworth was also a Hemsworth. I recognized the face, didn't know the name. Hey, more Hemsworth brothers, yay. This is a cool little military action and drama film that I knew absolutely nothing about going into. There are films that slip through those cracks. This was a film I actually kind of saw by accident. I had a ticket to see something. And I went to the theater, drove down there, and my ticket on my phone wouldn't scan. Well, as it turns out, I was way early. I was there on the wrong day. Well, some dumb guy was dumbing seriously at that particular moment. So I'm like, okay, well, I had drove to the next city over to watch whatever that was. I thinking, okay, well, I've come all the way out here planning to see a movie. What's playing? Guy running the box office stand there, he says, well, you know, this Land of Bad thing came out, and out of nowhere, even for him, he says, I knew nothing about it. Just boom, all of a sudden was here. And I'm hearing good things about it. I said, okay, cool, give me a ticket. So I sat down and I watched it. You know, it was a damn solid film for what it was. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing earth-shattering, just a military mission in a foreign country gone wrong. Consequences ensue. And it's also, on the side, largely an interaction between two men. One, the sole survivor of an expedition gone wrong, whose really sole purpose there was to operate a drone. Had very little actual combat experience. And back home in the States, the man who controls that drone, interacting with him through sat phone or whatever radio system. The development, because it's like this man is alone in a jungle fighting for his life, and his only lifeline is basically a voiceover, an earpiece half a world away. It's a great movie, actually, for that simple premise. And I kind of surprised, but also happy to have included that in my top 10. I am surprised, but I'm not happy, is that after this theatrical run was finished, this film got a DVD-only release. No Blu-ray, no 4K. Canada got a Blu-ray. We here in the States, we get a DVD. I picked that up at Walmart. It was probably the very last purchase I made at Walmart as far as physical media goes. They haven't got nothing for me anymore. And that was just kind of a default. So, number 10, Land of Bad, 2 thumbs up. From August 30th, directed by Mikael Hofstrom. Apologies if I mispronounced that. Starring Casey Affleck, Lawrence Fishburne, Emily Beecham. We have Slingshot, a really great psychological thriller and a horrific theatrical experience, exclusively due to the part of probably mid-60s, early 70s year old couple whom apparently thought they were watching this in their living room at home. And I can clearly hear commenting and conversing through the entire film on the other side of the auditorium. No amount of shushing or finally yelling would get them to shut up. Then they had the audacity after the film to be walking down the corridor to talk about how out of my mind I was until they realized I was there, and they clammed right up. When I passed by them to get to the door and commented where the fact that I was there paying to watch a movie, not listen to them talk, didn't make me the bad guy. They proceeded to tell me that I could have moved to a different seat if their talking bothered me. So I told them, hey, I was so far away from you people on the other end of the auditorium, I couldn't even see you. The husband at that point felt so threatened because I was standing at the door, and I guess he got the impression that I was blocking their exit, although they were double doors and I was standing in front of one of them. He got very apologetic. And I was just blown away by the whole confrontation. So I stepped out the door and held it up for them, open for them, so that they can get out, because he was so panicked at that point he couldn't get the other door to open. I can only hope the experience was a learning one for them. I mean, educational in the sense that they learn, because that's one thing post-COVID, theaters reopening. People have really forgotten how to watch movies in the theater. They got so used to sitting in their living room streaming everything because they didn't go anywhere, that mindset that, hey, I'm at home, we can just talk throughout the movie because it's not going to bother anybody. Well, they took that mentality and they took that practice right straight back to the movie theater. Time and time again, over the last 3 years, it's been a big issue. Slingshot. Excellent film. Very slow burn, slow paced. Haven't purchased this one for my library yet. Plan to. It went out of stock on Amazon really quickly and has never returned. But I know where I can get it. I just need to pull the trigger. Looking forward to doing it and giving it a rewatch. So, Slingshot, two more thumbs up. December 25th, Christmas Day, one of the last films to release for the year. Here's where the controversy may begin, or extend, or continue, whatever. Directed by Robert Eggers, starring the lovely Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, Bill Skarsgård, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Willem Dafoe. We've got Nosferatu. Why is this number 8? Would it be lower or higher for you people? For me, it's an incredibly well-made film. Technically, artistically, I could praise this thing all day long. I could likewise do the same with the performances, particularly with Lily Rose Depp. However, Aaron Taylor Johnson, doing his best to portray a Victorian-era oak tree, I suppose, was about as wooden as one comes. I love 99% of every aspect of this film, but my entire drive home afterwards and discussing it with the friend that I had seen it with afterwards, although I could praise the film all day long, I wasn't, or I have yet to decide if I was entertained by it. I was certainly engaged. I was certainly intrigued. But I don't feel like I was entertained. I also had a lot of trouble with Bill Skarsgård. Not necessarily, I didn't recognize him. Makeup, appearance, everything about his performance, great. I couldn't understand half of his dialogue in the film. And this is your main antagonist in the story, and I didn't understand half of what he was saying, and that was a problem for me. It sounds like something I have to go buy a 4K of. Hopefully it gets a 4K when it comes out, and watch it with the subtitles on so I can revisit it and understand what the hell the man was saying. That probably took away quite a bit for me. It has encouraged me to strongly consider going back and watching the original two versions. The first original, and then I can't even say original because all this is a remake of another remake of a rip-off adaptation of the Dracula novel, a 1922 film made originally because they couldn't get the rights to the Dracula novel to make a legitimate film in Germany, so they just remade the story with different character names. And then is it 79? There was a new adaptation or a new remake of the stolen material, stolen property, and now here we are again in 2024 doing the same. Might be fun to compare the three, get a little Nosferatu trilogy going, case those suckers up together and go, here's your knockoff Dracula story trilogy, remakeology, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I'll pick it up when it comes out. All the other Robert Eggers films I've seen, I own, so no problem, no hesitation whatsoever adding that one to my library. From March 24th, directed by Robert Lorenz, whom I've never heard of, starring Liam Neeson. I have no idea how to pronounce this man's name, although I recognize him very clearly. Ciarán Hinds, please forgive me. Carrie Condon. Cole Meany, In the Land of Saints and Sinners. I was very much surprised by this film. Any moviegoer, any Liam Neeson fan is aware that for the last 5 or 6 decades, he as an actor has been portraying characters past their prime that have some kind of edge to them, some kind of history or past. They get thrust into a violent situation, and the past comes forth and they act on it, and the geriatric kicks all kinds of ass all over the place. And Liam Neeson has performed in this role about 723 times now. This one's a bit different. This one actually plays more up realistically to his age, to his history, to the circumstances of the environment. This is a period piece. I believe it takes place in the 70s in Ireland. I found this one to be far more realistic than anything I've seen Liam Neeson do in this type of role in a very, very, very long time. And I found myself flying creatures. I found myself gaining more and more respect for the film, for the story as it progressed. And left the theater sufficiently enthusiastic and felt for the small feel of this film that this just accomplished something really good for me and for my level of entertainment, for my level of appreciation of the filmmaking and everything that this movie could have been and fortunately was not. In the Land of Saints and Sinners gets some really good praise from me and ends up very high on my list for the year. And it's in my library. September 13th, a film that likely will never be in my library, probably because it'll never see a physical media release. My assessment, no news whatsoever on either front, but it's certainly been long enough that if it was going to, it would have already. We're talking about a film directed by Justin Folk, starring Matt Walsh. Documentary, Am I Racist? Yes, you heard that right. Am I Racist has made it into my top 10. Why? because of the subject matter it tackled incredibly well. It tackled incredibly tastefully and tactfully, all things considered, because there's no real definitive way something like this could be handled. The fact that it didn't turn into a big old cluster is impressive on itself. Saw 2 documentaries in 2024. Am I Racist? And Vindicating Trump. I have my list right here. Vindicating Trump turned into a total cluster. It couldn't even decide if it wanted to be a documentary or a bit of fiction. It wouldn't surprise me if Am I Racist is a measure of fiction. And I say that because there's one particular scene in the film where Matt Walsh is presenting himself as a person giving seminars, paid seminars, to help cure people of their white guilt, their white supremacy, their white privilege. And as I'm watching this, I got the distinct impression that the people in the seminar, the few that there were maybe like 10 or less people, they all look like recognizable actors to me, almost every single one. Like I knew who these people were. They weren't listed in the credits at the end of the film, so I wasn't able to confirm any of that. But that led me to doubt that what I was watching was what was actually, what it was represented at, or as in the documentary. So I thought, okay, maybe this part of things is fiction, and if it is, then there's a large possibility that the entirety is. But it gave me big Bill Maher religious documentary / mockumentary vibes, to where you have presumably real life, real world situations, but it's presented in a way and edited in a way that also lets you know that it's not 100%. This is the facts or the truth of how everything manifested itself as it was filmed. Some nice editing and inserts and things of that nature. And I'm not going to go into that one in any detail. I just wanted to make a little comparison for anybody that's actually seen Religulous. A hardcore liberal, hardcore conservative, both presenting a topic that is important to them in documentary form. And me being someone who could appreciate elements from both. I would like it if this gets a physical release. I own Religulous. That was put out on DVD many years ago, and I've been a proud owner of it for 15 years-ish in that neighborhood, since I was relatively new. Respect to Matt Walsh for being able to put this together, because it's it's not a topic that can really be broached easily or discussed openly without a great degree of difficulty, and he pulled it off, and pulled it off well, so respect. One of the first releases of 2024, January 19th, directed by Gabriella Cowperthwaite. You really sure you want that to be your professional name? Cowperthwaite. Cowperthwaite. I'm sorry, you did this to yourself. I am. Starring a whole list of people I don't think I've ever seen or heard of before. A very small, independent-esque feeling film. However, one of great intrigue, great suspense, great drama, tension. Talking ISS, or International Space Station. A film about a group of scientists, American and Russian astronauts, who were on the International Space Station when nuclear war breaks out on Earth. And this group of people are left to their own devices, not knowing what's happening on Earth, not knowing who's responsible, and fear and distrust slowly begin to consume them. It gets the better of the entire situation. And what the result is for this group of people who are really at that point put in an impossible situation. Because even under the best of circumstances, what's left of the world below, even if everything is okay in the world above? Is there a world below to even return to? What do they do? What could they do? If you're looking at a situation, when I said even the best of circumstances, and the world below you is broken out into nuclear war, are there even facilities capable, resources capable of getting you back home again for whatever is left of the world, even if you could? Even if you could survive down there, could you get there? I mean, you obviously can't survive indefinitely in space either. This was a great, tense thriller in a very claustrophobic type environment with absolute horror occurring basically just outside the window. And that was one of the coolest things, I think, too, as I'm watching this, because you do see from the outside in the windows, you're seeing images of the Earth through the window as you're up in orbit. The world's on fire. You're seeing nuclear explosions. You're seeing all the fallout results of these nuclear weapons going off. It's always, the destruction of Earth is always like a background character seen regularly through the windows. And it's beautiful special effects as well. This one, pre-ordered, boom, in my library right away. No hesitation, happy to own it. More thumbs up for that one. Back to the opposite end, late in the year, from October 18th, directed by John Crowley and starring Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. Going into this film blind is We Live in Time. I had the slightest little crush on Florence Pugh. I think she's adorable. She's why I went and saw this movie. I didn't know anything about it. I saw the poster. The chemistry between Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh was phenomenal. It has an interesting chronological narrative. Maybe that's hence why part of the title, but it's bouncing back and forth between time frames. Initially, that's disjarring. It takes a little bit of establishment to get through it, to find out how many time frames there are that are being told, to understand the separation between them, that there actually is a separation between them, because at first it's like, what? Yeah, you're going back and forth between this couple. Boom, over here they're married together, pregnant, about to have a baby, and then over here they having a child, and then over here they haven't even met yet. Now they're just meeting and going dating for the first time, and you're, like I said, I think there's 3 different time frames. What? Okay. That's not the fault of the movie. It's not a flaw in the storytelling or the narrative. I mean, I think pretty much any movie I've ever watched that tries to tell a narrative out of sequence and bouncing around in time frames suffers that same problem. This movie was a breath of fresh air. It was a delight. Some slight comedic elements, but it's just more of a romantic drama between 2 leads that just, boom, hit it off perfectly. A very touching story, very heartfelt. It definitely had the female aspect of my audience reacting appropriately, tissues in hand. So I think this movie accomplished everything it set out to, and I really enjoyed it. There's a physical media release pending. It's all on pre-order right now. Will probably be added to my library in short order. So December 6th, directed by Uberto Pasolini, starring Ralph Fiennes, Juliette Binoche, Charlie Plummer. Those are our main players. We're talking The Return. Very small film. Promoted at my local theater in trailers a number of times leading up to the release. Consequently, was never actually exhibited at either of the 2 theaters in this chain that I live near. I had to drive 2 cities away to get access to it after finding out it was already playing. That's 2 or 3 times in 2024 that this theater did this to me. One time the year before, they had posters up within the theater for a film they never exhibited. Why are you promoting movies you are not going to show us? It's a bad idea. It's bad business. The Return is one of those artsy, probably awards contenders. This one in particular is a story of Odysseus arriving home years after wandering from the Trojan War to find his kingdom in complete disarray and his wife/queen surrounded by suitors, everybody presuming he was dead, her being pressured to marry and take a new king, and him wandering in as a poor, homeless, emaciated, weakened character back to his homeland to find nothing recognizable and everything he knew to be gone. And his journey to come to terms with everything around him. Very slow burn, as this kind of film tends to be. Compelling, engaging nonetheless. Very much worth the time. Great performances, solid story. It'd be interesting to go back and read the original Greek tale of whatever part of this is actually documented for basis of comparison someday. This also is pending a pre-order for physical media release. I'd like to say I'm going to get this one for my library. I'm a little on the fence about it because this is one of those really good films that just might not have really great rewatchability. We'll see. Maybe at some point I'll pick it up, have it on reserve. Who knows? I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm just not overly enthusiastic about it. So, but for the film itself and what I experienced in the theater, yeah. October 4th, directed by Mark Forster, starring Aurelia, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Aria, Glazer, Orlando Schwartz, Gillian Anderson, and Helen Mirren. We have White Bird. Pretty much went into this one blind too. I saw a trailer for it. It's a great, touching story about a woman who has had some serious shit go on in her life. A life that started out really rough, really painful, through both the horrors and the kindness of others, escaped through it to have a phenomenal and successful life. Consequently, being able to take the lessons that she learned from that and pass it down to generations of her family in the hopes that they will learn something from it. This is an incredibly touching and heartfelt story that anybody would be hard-pressed to find any complaints about. Wholeheartedly recommend it. I haven't seen any evidence of a physical release for this one yet. Nothing has presented itself to me. I'm going to have to go in and look, but this is probably one that will be added to my library and something that I could definitely see myself watching again. It deserves that recognition, it deserves that praise, it deserves that support. I think every film in my top 10 does, and well below. But we're at the top here for the ones that deserve the absolute most praise, and this gets it. June 21st, directed by Josh Margolin, and the number 1 ranked film of my list of 44. Is it the best made? Or is it simply my favorite? It doesn't really matter. I love this movie. I saw it in the theater. Blindly. No trailer. Apparently this is based on something of a true story. This film is an incredible ride. It's fun, it's touching, it's sad. There's so much heart in it. I absolutely love this movie. I adore it on every level. This film stars June Squibb, whom I'd never heard of before this film. Fred Heikinger, whom I'd also never heard of before this film. Richard Roundtree, rest in peace. This was his last film role. He was the original Shaft from the 70s. Parker Posey, Clark Gregg. Malcolm McDowell is also in this film. This movie is called Thelma. I love this movie. I adore everything about it. I love every performance, every character with any kind of significant presence. I've showed this movie to one person since I got it. She loved it. And God, I broke this up into 4 parts. So, Thelma is somewhere here, obviously. Like I said, it's in my library. I think this one has great rewatchability. This is, again, one of the films on this list that makes me incredibly happy that I'm taking the chances that I am. Because otherwise I wouldn't be discovering these films. These kinds of films have been made, I mean, who knows how, 100 years? I mean, who knows, really? I mean, there's no way to put a time frame on it. It could be as long as films have been made since the late 1800s, the earliest silent eras. Makes me think of all the films that have come out in my lifetime since I've been going to the theater and had the ability to go and do so on my own. All those that I didn't consider, that I rejected outright because I'd never heard of it. Maybe even some that I intended to go see and circumstances presented themselves that it didn't happen. I've said this many times over the last, say, 20 years or more, 25 years, that some of the best movies I've seen in my life have been movies that I had no interest in seeing before seeing them. Coming up in the very near future, I want to do a similar series to this, a ranking of theatrical re-releases for 2024. Essentially older films that have come back to the theater for that year. See how many there are, see which ones I watched, see how they might rank up. Makes for an interesting experience rather than ranking movies that came out in one year, ranking movies that span decades that just happen to be presented to me in one year. So that might be an interesting bookmark. 2024 and older, same year. Yeah. And we'll see how many total theatrical experiences I then had for 2024. Obviously, with this, we're up to 44. See how many times I went to the theater in 2024. Thank you, everybody. Seriously. I'm sure there's only 3 of you at this point. Sincerely want to thank each and every one of you who have taken the time to watch this. Good night to you all. And thank you. Hope to see you again in whatever my next video will be. Good night.